Hey everyone, this is another one of those impromptu discussions, something I've had on my mind. I feel it really bears some discussion based on some recent conversations and past conversations with folks. I want to talk about this issue of information overload. It seems that everyone at one time or another winds up with a case of information overload. When we start looking for answers, we look in all sorts of nooks and crannies and find all sorts of shit to distract us. And because we haven't yet developed a discernment to know what's real and what isn't, we just accumulate all this information until it gets to be a gigantic heap in our heads, and our heads just keep spinning and spinning and spinning, trying to find sense out of all this information that we've digested. What you need to realize, and you're all familiar with the disinformation aspect of this global agenda. If you've watched that video by Yuri Bezmenov, Psychological Warfare, Subversion, and Control of Western Society, it's on YouTube. Just look it up. One of the primary tactics of Marxism is to sow confusion in the populace by giving them too goddamn much information. Now, when people watch his presentations, they think of it from strictly a political aspect. They don't look at the spiritual aspect as part of this overloading of information and confusing the listeners with erroneous garbage. We've told you about the think tanks that Lucis Trust owns all around the planet. These think tanks is where these sons of bitches get together and come up with these ideas about shit like quantum jumping and DNA activations and, whatever other new age hornswoggle they happen to be peddling at the moment. Just like all the shit that we observed with that, this whole eclipse thing. They've got this set diatribe to which they can attach any fucking variable they want to. And these spiritually hungry people will say, ooh, that's new. Maybe that's going to give me the trigger point so I can advance and move on. And so they have paid disinformation people that dream this shit up. They flood the marketplace with it. It sows confusion. And the ultimate outcome is that people have this gigantic pile of information in their heads that they can't sort out and put together because, in all honesty, it's not meant to be. It is a bunch of nonsense. It's extraneous, useless information. But I've seen it happen so often in the spiritual crowd or people on their quest. They'll find a conspiracy shit, and then they'll start looking at this, and then they'll start looking at that, and it winds up being a gigantic hunt. And I'll admit, I went through it too. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you have to call a halt to it. You have to sit back, take a breath, and say, okay, what am I dealing with here? You have to realize that this shit is intentionally vague. It is intentionally designed to sow confusion, and the quest for information is not going to take you where you want to go. It's just gathering information which piles on and creates more confusion as you try to make sense out of nonsense. And you have to realize that this is part of the design. In order for them to keep people from doing what you're seeking to do as Soika crew folks, is to distract them with all this extraneous frill, just like the image of the Wizard of Oz. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Look at all this shit I'm dangling over here in your front of your face, with the fire and thunder and all this other kind of crap. A lot of the information in the marketplace is designed specifically to do that for spiritual seekers. It's not just political. This shit is across the spectrum. So when you fall into that trap of hunting information and gathering information and then trying to put pieces together where very often there is no connecting pieces. It's just an extraneous piece of data that you'll see these new age parrots fold into their belief system. Sort of like watching that guy that takes a dig at spirituality, that redheaded dude. It's a rote doctrine. They become parrots. They'll spit the shit out. They have no understanding of it whatsoever. They think they have a sense of it, but there is no sense to be made from nonsense. Now, in saying this, I know each of you has your own particular areas of interest in your own research, and I'm not trying to discourage research in that regard. It's through such avenues of personal interest that, you get your own points of enlightenment or awareness or whatever the case may be. But at some point you have to learn discernment enough to know that everything that happens, whether historically or otherwise, is not necessarily connected as some kind of grand conspiracy. Sometimes shit just happens. It's random. History is not all, painted in a dot-to-dot manner. Sometimes somebody comes along and fucks things up. So don't fall into the trap that thinking that everything, when you do your research into whatever you're looking into, that it necessarily connects to the larger picture, so far as being part of their overall plan. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it's just random shit. So this is where learning discernment comes in. But you need to be aware that this information overload, strictly from gathering information and keeping adding it to a heap, without being able to develop the discernment to sort out, what's real and what isn't, it's going to create confusion. It's going to create frustration, because you're trying to make sense out of nonsense. And rather than step back for a moment and take a breath and analyze this stuff, people have a tendency to keep heaping it on, figuring, well, if I get that one more piece of information, then all of this is going to fall together. And it winds up being a trap in and of itself, because we keep looking for that golden nugget. And the truth of the matter is, there probably is no golden nugget. But this mindset has become prevalent, with conspiracy theorists. It's become prevalent particularly with spiritual seekers. They figure, if I can get that one little key piece of data, that it's going to bring me enlightenment. So they keep hunting, they keep gathering, they keep piling up information, and they keep winding up with no answers, to where they drive themselves to a point of confusion. Their heads are spinning, and they get no resolution. And it just adds to their confusion, because they're not looking for the right things. They come up with expectations and false ideas about what they think is going to happen, what's going to be the golden ticket to enlightenment. And so they try every goddamn thing these assholes dream up. I'm going to learn how to quantum jump. I'm going to learn Reiki. I'm going to learn whatever the fuck it is they're peddling. And they all think they're going to get the golden key to Ascension Land or to heaven, or whatever the case may be. But in the process, all they are doing is piling up information, a goodly percentage of it being completely and totally useless, and creating confusion and frustration in their own minds, and they're not making progress. They think that the information in and of itself is going to be the golden ticket, and it's not. It's just fucking information. So as you work through your process, whatever areas of study you want to get involved in, I don't care. I encourage it, because you may find something I missed. I don't claim to have all the pieces of all the puzzles. I've got the general overview, but I haven't researched 6,000 fucking years of Earth history, not in a specific sense. So do your research, but have the wisdom to know that everything doesn't necessarily fit into this puzzle. A lot of it is just strictly disinformation to make you feel confused, to keep you off the point, to frustrate you, and keep you searching out more shit to add to the information pile, which creates this sense of information overload. Having said that, there is another sense of information overload that comes with the information that we're sharing with the public through our books and through these videos. This information overload comes from this stuff being so far outside the world as you perceived it that it's just plain hard to deal with. It's so big and so fucking weird that trying to fit it into the framework of understanding that we've been indoctrinated with gives you a headache. And this kind of information overload, I can't really help, because it's it is what it is. It's not my fault. or Soika Crew's fault that the information available to this species was so handicapped, limited, parceled down, and the human perception of reality is like living in a glass. So this type of information overload, when you are confronted with these larger scope topics of the multiverse and crew work, that can't be avoided. But if you ponder it for a minute, it is completely different from the type of first cognition information overload that most people are dealing with. You know, just piling on information thinking they're going to get some kind of golden ticket. What we present, it's overwhelming because it utterly stretches your perceptions of reality, and those perceptions need to be stretched. But it's a fucking hard pill to swallow. I'll admit it. It was, you know, this stuff was hard for us to swallow in many cases too. So I just wanted to put something out here to advise you guys on the information overload, to approach a lot of this stuff, particularly what's available in the first cog world, with a jaundiced eye. Don't feel that there is validity in everything. Sometimes there is. Sometimes it's just fucking hogwash. But always, you know, hunting for that new piece of information that you think is going to be the key that gives you the ticket to the promised land is just adding to your frustration and confusion. So be advised, be wise, and do your research, you know, with a more pragmatic eye. That's basically all I wanted to say. So, you know, here it is. Use the information how you see fit, and, you know, have fun on your research projects. I do. Oh, I almost forgot. The last of the transcripts books that we did with Doug, the video transcripts, The Cognitive Illusion of History, we've got that released. It's now available through the website demystifyingthemystical.com. It's also on Amazon, and we do have the Kindle version ready for those that are interested in it. So just thought I'd give you a heads up on it. Take care. See you next time.